Okay, guys, I'm going over here and get my judge. I got my grown folks hair on. I got my savage clothes on. I'm ready for this damn heat. And I'm ready for these people. Because I'm going to vote.
Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote?
We are monitoring the election to make sure everything goes all right, and we're going to do it right. And then we got protection with us if any trouble come on. We have monitors.
That's me.
Yeah.
Miss Jackson.
This is the NAACP. Miss Jackson. The oldest one in the game. All right.
All right.
Because of you, and it's all because of you, baby. And it's all
I've already told all my friends and family to vote, and now I'm out here making sure that the people in line to do what they do, their energy is high and their spirits is lifted so that we can get our voices heard. We cannot complain about what's wrong if we're not going to do nothing about it. We have the power, we have voices, and people are actually listening at this point.
women beat their men. Women beat their men.
Come on, come on, come on. Don't you want to vote? Yes, I want to vote.
Wow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for being here this evening. I will say that video has me so hype. I hope y'all are hype as well. My name is Angela Peoples. I am the campaign director for the Election Defenders, and welcome to our kickoff call. All that magic that we had in 2020 that we were just reminded of, we are bringing it back. And so we're grateful that you all are joining us for our kickoff event. As we begin, I want to offer a couple of housekeeping things for y'all. First, as I said, my name is Angela Peoples. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a brown-skinned woman with silver earrings, gold framed glasses, a yellow gold sweatshirt, and orange lipstick, and short curly hair. I am joined by our ASL interpreters, Oral, who you'll see on the screen now, and Matthew, who will be joining us later. We have ASL interpretation available throughout the program. You can also find access to Spanish simultaneous interpretation by calling the number that you see at the bottom of the screen, right there at the bottom. We'll have time for questions at the end of the program. You can submit your questions via comments on Facebook or YouTube if that's where you're watching. If you're watching this on Twitter, hey, we love you on Twitter as well. You can tweet your questions and someone will respond via tweet. Again, I want to just say thank you for being here. We have a really wonderful program planned for you tonight. The first part is going to give us a sense of where we came from in 2020. So with that, I want to pass it to some panelists and invite Tiffany Flowers, the director of the Frontine, and Ashley Henderson, who is a great friend of the Frontline and is also director of the Highland Center. Ash, Tiffany, take it away.
Pew, pew, pew. Gang, gang, gang. Gang, gang. Hi, Sissy.
What's up, my loves? It's great to see y'all.
So wonderful to see you. Thanks for the introduction, Angela. I'm going to jump right in. As Angela said, my name's Tiffany Flowers. I am the campaign director of the Frontline, and I serve at the pleasure of 4 amazing organizations. That is the Working Families Party, the Movement for Black Lives Electoral Justice Project, United We Dream, and the Rising Majority. And I'm happy to tell you a little bit about them whenever you want to talk about them. Pleased to join you from Baltimore. I'm a brown-skinned Black woman in my home with tortoiseshell glasses on, a kind of green florally print shirt, and my locks are pulled into the neatest ponytail I could give you all tonight, and a red lip. You want to talk about yourself, Ashley?
Sure. What's up, y'all? My name is Ashley Woodard Henderson. My homies call me Ash. I use she, her pronouns, or any said respectfully and in right relationship. I'm a caramel skinned Black girl with a glorious salt and pepper afro, and I'm wearing my "We Are the Rising Majority" t-shirt tonight. And I just am honored to be back in this sacred space with y'all.
Man, so Ashley is actually a really good friend of the Frontline and one of the founding members. I think it's really important to name that. Ashley was, as she likes to say, in the room where it all happened when the Frontline came together. And for those of you who don't know, we together built a container for 27 million people in this country who took action after the murder of George Floyd and helped take that energy from the streets right onto the polls. So Ash, I'm so proud to be right back at the work with you this year. We got it again. Here we are.
Here we are.
And never again. And look at that. Here we are.
I am infinitely proud of the work that we were all stronger together to make impossible things possible in 2020. And I think if we didn't learn anything from that experience, it's that it wasn't a one and done kind of deal. And, I'm grateful for the infrastructure that was built by these incredible 4 organizations and the handfuls of us that pulled it together, especially you, Tiffany, and Angela, you taking up this mantle and all the work that you also did in 2020 in relationship to the Frontline as well. And just, I think if there was ever a time that the Frontline was needed, the infrastructure that we built in 2020 is going to pay off not only this year, but in the years to come, for sure.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit about the election defenders, Ash. I'm giddy because that video just literally transplanted me right back into those, as I'm sure to see you all nodding, transplanted us right back into those days and weeks building up in the midst of the pandemic, just raging. 45 talking so crazy about what was going to happen and all his plans for what was going to happen on election day and beyond. So let's talk a little bit about what we accomplished in 2020. Let's talk about what the election defenders did and what we got done.
Yeah. I love this story in part because I feel like all of our movement building efforts over the last decade across the 4 organizations has been a love story with grassroots communities, because that's who we're from. That's our people. It's who we are. It's like literally our embodiment, like who we are, who Tiffany Flowers is, who Angela Peoples is, who Leslie Mack is, who Ashley Woodard Henderson is grassroots. And we, felt our people in a crisis, felt an even larger crisis coming, and decided we were going to do everything in our power, literally like taking it out of our flesh, to build the movement infrastructure to stop what was in no small way going to be an authoritarian, at least likely fascist regime getting a second term on the presidential level. So then what? Well, I mean, a bunch of y'all in the chat already talking about what the election defenders did, telling us that you had an incredible time. So I'm also inviting you all to also tell us what you made possible, because the Frontline was nothing if it wasn't for every single person that came through the election defenders program, every single person that came to a mass movement call, every single person that was a part of the partnership calls. All of you are the Frontline. Like we said, we are the Frontline on purpose. The election defenders was one piece of that. And I think it was necessary for a couple of reasons, just to take us back. And I promise, as crappy as the beginning of the story is, the end of the story is a happier one. So I promise I'll preach you up on the uptick. The first piece is that many of us across our social movements, across the sectors of work that we do, outside of our organizations, recognize that by August of 2020, it was a sure thing that Donald Trump was about to get a second term. Right? Let me just say it again. While all the folks were saying, oh no, the Democrats got this in the bag, everybody in the grassroots saw it coming from their neighborhoods that Donald Trump was absolutely certainly about to win a second term, either because he won the popular vote or he got the electors or because he stole it, right? Because that happens in the United States. People steal elections. Hello, Georgia, right?
Okay.
So we were like, listen, we can't just sit idly by after this huge racial reckoning, after the impact of COVID on our lives, and like just sit and not do anything about it. So we came together, these 4 organizations that Tiffany Arley just named, came together and said, listen, any one of our organizations individually is going to do our very best work to try to stop this from happening. But even more importantly, we could do so much more if we came together across these organizations and really take up the movement space, saying that we're going to work together. We're going to give people really clear directives around how we can show up and show out in defense of Black lives, and in proximity to that, benefit everybody because it's going to save democracy. And we knew that one tactical intervention, one piece of that work had to be preparing our folks to literally know what to do in the moment of crisis at the polls, right? We knew that that it was not going to be easy to vote in many of the places that we come from because of voter suppression, because of white supremacist violence, right? All of the state-sanctioned ways that make it hard for us to get our votes counted. We knew that we wouldn't know the election results immediately, and that we needed to plan for how we would respond as communities to that. And so folks came together and said, well, let's put together a training program to get people prepped and ready to go so that they know what to do on the day of the election at the polls. They know what to do after the election is over, but we don't know the results. They know what to do if the right tries to steal an election. They know to go and chase every single ballot. They know that there's an election defense hotline. They know what to do, and they know how to tell their people what to do, even more importantly, once the election occurs. So we had, I don't even know how many weeks of weekly trainings with folks from all sorts of movement life. And that's exciting to me. Like, having that movement infrastructure was important, and movement actually engaging in electoral politics. I think after, decades and decades of just sort of throwing the tactic of elections away, quite frankly, which I think was an ultra leftist. I'm guilty of it too, an ultra leftist tactic. And it didn't work. But I think that's exciting enough that we course corrected as movement. But what's even more exciting to me about it is that regular ass people that weren't connected to anybody found their way to the front line through the Election Defenders Program. And it was a way to actually mobilize folks who were just mad about what had happened in 2020, were mad about what they were seeing in their neighborhoods even before then, and wanted to figure out how to be politically engaged with a group of people bigger than just themselves, right? So I saw one of our comrades say the power of unity. Yes, like the power of unity, both with our grassroots organizations, but also the power of unity with people who had been looking for us, who had been waiting for us, who were trying to find a place that they could build relationships across the issues that were keeping them up at night, and then do something with the new knowledge that could only have been created if they said yes to participating in the political program. So the Election Defenders did a lot of things. The training was a piece of it, but if it had only been getting people new knowledge for the sake of being smarter people, we wouldn't have saved democracy. The end of the story, the good news, what I would call the gospel, right?
Here we go.
People went into those trainings. They took that information home with them. They shared it with their friends, their synagogues, their churches, the clubs that they go to, their homies from across the street, their neighbors, right? They shared that information. And then guess what we did? We saved democracy. Right. And we saved democracy not because we were sold out to the Democrats, not because we believed that Joe Biden was going to be our great white savior. That was not the plan. The plan was to control the terrain in which we were fighting, and that's what our people did. That's what our people did. And then they, it could have been the end of the love story right there. It could have been like, well, we did it. Trump didn't get a second term, pat ourselves on the back. But instead, those very same folks, the election defenders, folks that had come to the Making Meaning of the Moment calls, folks that were joining our partnership calls organizationally, stayed together through the first 100 days of the Biden administration and fought like hell to make sure that the issues that we thought were priority got prioritized on the congressional and presidential levels. And was all of that perfect? No, they haven't given us everything that we wanted, right? They haven't given us nearly what we deserve, considering we put our lives on the line to usher in this new administration, this new Congress. And that's why tonight is important, because we could have just said, well, we did it. And it's not fair to, then it would be true. It's not fair to ask us to do it again. But frankly, our democracy depends on it. We are maybe a year out from fascism. We might only have maybe a year of neoliberalism, which ain't that great, left.
Yeah.
Right. So it's even more critical now than ever for the Frontline to continue to exist and for the Election Defenders Program to be reintroducing ourselves in this 2022 way. So that's a little bit of context for why I think the Election Defenders were so critical in 2020 and why I think it's necessary that we come back together and make magic happen again.
A little bit of context and a little bit of church. I'm very much here for it. Thank you, Ash. Tiff, did you want to add anything to what Frontline and Election Defenders accomplished in 2020? And if not, I do have one more question for y'all.
I just want to name, if you're new, like Ashley said, like we've been waiting for you because we do have to get to work, family. And I'll say, if you're interested in us and you didn't get to see the clips, if you were voting last year in America, chances are you saw an election defender. You saw someone in yellow, the same hue of yellow that Angela is wearing right now, with the 1, 2, 3 with the line. I forget what you call that, but we had our, thank you. Look at that. Oh my God, these people are magic. That was our symbol, the election defender symbol. And we partnered with Black Men Build, and we partnered with the NAACP, and we partnered with Mi Gente, and we partnered with small organizations. And like I said, everyday people, the concerts, the Joy to the Post. Shout out to Nalini Stamp, who couldn't be with us tonight, but she's truly the architect and the visionary behind all of this. And it's really important to say her name and name all of the intentional work that she did into bringing fun and thoughtfulness and consideration, and really, most importantly, joy into the work. And that's also what we're inviting you into, is joy.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you lifting up that piece, Tiffany, so much. And one thing for me that I always really appreciated and was just in awe of the vision of the bringing together the Frontline and the Election Defenders is recognizing that energy, that momentum, that rage that was really boiling in the streets during the summer of 2020, and many folks not really sure how to connect that energy to the election that we knew is not, like you said, Ash, not going to be the be all end all, right? We're very much vote in this space. And but we know that energy needed to be funneled into something that could be powerful, and to also make sure that we had another chance in 2022 and in 2024 to have a say in the terrain that we fight on. And so I really just am so grateful for that vision, and that the vision of folks like you all, like Nalini, like so many others, was able to come to fruition in this moment. And we see the fruits of that today. For me, I will ask, and I have some thoughts myself, but for you all, Tiffany, why are we bringing back our mass movement cause? They're like Ash said, there was a lot of different pieces that were moving in 2020. Why these mass movement calls? What's the opportunity here?
Well, first and foremost, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm going to tell you I missed you. Duh. We missed you guys. We've been in touch with you. We've remained in touch with you. The Frontline has stayed open through this all. But during that time, we really built a family. And I see some of you in the comments naming that, right? We knew that we could look to each other for safety and security, and most importantly, accurate information, right? Yes. And so in this moment that we're living in, unfortunately, we're at war with a lot of negative forces. And one of the biggest negative forces is misinformation and people not knowing where they can go for trusted sources. And so we wanted to open the doors of the Frontline Church, the Election Defenders Church, the Joy to the Poll Church again, because we know that we've earned your trust. We trust you, you trust us, and we have work to do. And so as this information is constantly evolving and people are attempting to insert misinformation and tell us wrong things and make us weary, right? It's really important for a couple of things. It's important for us to have a place to go to feel in community with each other, because all of these forces, let's be honest, are wearing us all down. And it's a long road to Election Day 2022. It's a longer day to 2024. And we all know that starts on this year's election day. Number two, we know we had fun. We want to reinvigorate. We want to bring the fun back to the polls. Nobody wants to stand in line and not have anything to do when you know you could be doing the electric slide, or you know Neo might pull up, right? So why not? And lastly, and most importantly, Oral, you are killing me. Most importantly, like Ash said, and this really is the thing, we live our values. And this is really about the care and the relief and the love and our belief that everybody who is registered to vote in this country should have an opportunity to vote in the election in a safe and fair manner. And if we can be there to help disrupt and calm any fear that you have and help you stay in line again and not feed into misinformation or the evil forces that surround us, because as Nsé Ufot says, in the marketplace of ideas, they know that none of us are buying what they're selling. We're the people to be here to do that for you. We've done it before. We can all do it again. And we wanted to make sure you knew weeks in advance that it's time to pony up, come to the trainings, and let's get it, because we have lots and lots of folks that need us. First-time voters, elderly voters, immunocompromised voters, all sorts of folks are depending on us to make sure that this goes very smoothly and they have their chance to raise their voice.
Yes, absolutely, Tiff. And like you said, we got us, right? There is a lot that might make us afraid. There's a lot that might make our neighbors and our family members afraid. And we may not feel like we always have the answers, but we, the collectively, we got us. We're going to hold it down. And that's why we're having these mass calls. We're going to be connecting with you, reaching out to you regularly so that you know where, how, and when to get trained up, so that you know what is real and what is not in terms of the information that's going out there, so that you can pass that on to your people and that you can be engaged and actively supporting folks that are trying to get out to vote, so that we can continue to hold and to build power. Thank you, Ash and Tiffany, for all of your work, for your leadership, for being visionaries, for just being real and down, and folks that I am just so honored to be able to be in community and comradeship with. If you are watching this and you want to get connected to the Frontline, yes, please text Frontline to 30403. We are excited to be working with you. We need election defenders. We're ready. Our trainings are going to start next week. We are ready for y'all to join us. So thank you, Ash. And please let us know, please let the people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can hear your beautiful words.
Listen, I'm on all the social medias. You can find me Ashley Woodard Henderson, or Ash-Lee, all spelled out. And yeah, I kick it with the Highlander Center and the Movement for Black Lives. So feel free to also find us there. Love you.
Love you, Ash. Tiff, let us know how the people can find you.
Oh, you don't want to find me. I don't post.
Yes,
Angela, I'm laughing because they've been in my DMs asking when we was bringing the Frontline and election defenders back. So I know y'all know how to find me. We're doing it.
If you want to see my boring food, I'm just Miss Flowers on Instagram, but that's not important. You should actually follow the Frontline at We Join the Frontline. And you should stay in touch with us, because we are cooking up lots of delicious surprises, and we missed you. We got work to do, and let's get it.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate having you and your leadership. But as we transition to the next part of our program, our good friend, TikTok creator and recent Emmy winner, Ryan Ken. Ryan Ken has some words to share with all of you. So take it away, Ryan.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. So what was on your mind voting today?
Yeah, I was focusing on my preparation with my coach. A lot more focus on strength training, endurance, of course. There's a competition that gets harder and harder every year.
Bit of a slow start at the beginning there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I had to run home, get 4 forms of ID, and my great-great-grandfather's freedom papers, and then come back and complete the race.
Care to send a special message to any supporters or loved ones?
I want to say thank you to my elders. You ran this race a while ago,
So I did not think that I would have to, but it looks like we're going to have to do this forever.
Well, congratulations
Thank you.
again. Really looking forward to seeing you compete in the healthcare games tomorrow.
What?
And congratulations on your recent Emmy, Ryan. We're so proud of you and thank you for working with us all of these years. My name is Leslie Mack. I use she, her pronouns. I am the communications director for the Frontline, and I'll be with you for just a few minutes this evening to talk with one of my good friends and one of the dopest, baddest organizers in the entire country, Nsé Ufot. But first, let me give you a brief description of myself. I'm a light-skinned Black woman with long rainbow-colored braids. I'm wearing a yellow shirt, a tan jacket, and an Art Deco style pair of sunglasses. So let me grab Nsé and bring her onto the stage. Hey, Nsé.
Hi, Leslie. How are you?
I'm so good. It's always such a pleasure to be in conversation with you. And I knew Election Defenders could not kick off without a word from Nsé Ufot. So here you are, and thank you for agreeing to speak with us.
My goodness, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all the election defenders for all that you do for us in service of maintaining a democracy that works for us.
We trying.
I know. Thank you. I'm Nsé Ufot. I am a brown-skinned Black woman with blonde highlights in her bundles. I'm wearing a large pair of black plastic glasses with a denim shirt.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being with us, Nsé. So listen, you have been building through New Georgia Project for over a decade, literally. I'm not joking here, folks, literally changing the state of electoral politics in Georgia. So can you give us an update of the state of play in this midterm election? What's going on in Georgia? Our friends are interested to know.
I am happy to. So as having earned the designation as one of America's newest battleground states, America's newest swing state, Georgia is absolutely in play. And what that means is that we are seeing, one, historic levels of participation from Black voters, from women and femmes, and from the 2004 babies who are registering to vote at a rapid clip and will be voting for the first time in the 2022 midterm elections. Unfortunately, while a lot has been written about the demographic shifts in our state, by 2025, white folks will no longer be the majority in Georgia, that there are many of us who are super excited about what it means to organize for a multiracial democracy and to have it actually work. And then there are some of us that are terrified by this news and are doing everything that they can to stop it. A lot has been said about the historic nature of the 2021 Senate runoffs, which you all helped us secure that sort of victory for democracy, and making sure that the will of Georgia voters is reflected in the results of our elections. What we saw after the January 5th high of helping Warnock and Ossoff get elected was immediate backlash with the January 6th insurrection. But then it didn't stop there. Over 400 anti-voting bills were introduced in 49 states, and our state of Georgia was one of them. And so with Senate Bill 202, the Republicans have given themselves many of the tools that they would need to overcome the results of any election that they don't like. And so at the same time that we're seeing massive mobilization and a more sophisticated and multiracial electorate, right? Where the analysis about the guy you want to have a beer with no longer applies, right? The idea that people want leadership and they want to know what their elected officials are going to do, and they want people that are accountable to them and their communities. At the same time that we're seeing this, we're also seeing some of the largest counties in Georgia where an individual is allowed to challenge an unlimited number of voters. So on Wednesday, coming up, Gwinnett County, the second largest county in Georgia, about to be bigger than Fulton County, where Atlanta is, one of the most diverse, racially and ethnically diverse county in the southeastern United States. Tomorrow, they're going to hear whether or not to purge 37,500 to challenge the voter registrations of 37,500 voters in their county. And you're thinking like, well, 7 million people voted in 2020. Like, what's 37,000? Well, when you think about the fact that President Biden won Georgia by a margin of just over 11,000 votes. We're talking about 0.00015 percentage points, right? And so 37,000 is more than 3 times the margin of victory in our most recent statewide elections. And so they're coming for the right to vote. They are seeking to take a sledgehammer to our elections infrastructure and willing to do anything to hold on to power. And so we're mobilizing, we're getting prepared. We have our election defenders on deck. And I'm still encouraged. Absentee ballot requests are through the roof.
Wow.
6 out of 10 absentee ballots that have been requested have come from women. That we're talking about 3 times the number of Black voters who've requested their vote by mail ballot than this time in 2018. And so, yeah, it's going to be an exciting midterm. I know that there's a lot happening around the country, and there's a lot happening in our communities. And I just want to, thank your audience and thank the team for holding the line and making sure that there is a process that we can tap into to make decisions about, how we're going to spend our money and how we keep our communities safe and how we, make sure there's not poop in the water that we're drinking.
All the things that we can not just survive, but thrive out here in these streets. It's so true.
Absolutely.
Something that really came up for me when you were giving that answer was like, even the question of like, oh, it's only, anytime anyone says only followed by a certain number of votes, I'm like, that's a red flag. Because if we know every vote needs to count, right? This is our mantra, especially after 2020, that every vote needs to count. Then every one of those 11,000 votes, every one of those 35,000 votes must be counted, needs to be counted. It's crucial to our democracy. It's also, a slap in the face to voters who are facing unprecedented odds at the voting booth, right? And not just in the context of voting, but also risking in some folks their lives in terms of their immunocompromised status at this point. Which I'm really buoyed to hear you saying more people are taking advantage of mail-in voting, because what that says is y'all are educating the populace, Nsé. So I want to give you props for that, because what that tells me is y'all spent time explaining to people that this is voting and expanding their notion. Like if you didn't get your sticker, although I will say here in North Carolina, when you get your mail-in ballot, they give you a little sticker in the mail-in ballot too here.
See,
Georgia might want to, it says I voted by mail right on there. It says it's very cute.
Carolina.
Super cute. I was excited when I was like, oh, I got a sticker too. I didn't even feel FOMO or anything. It was very cute. But you're right. People often overlook the midterms. I think this year it's a little different. We have some big states like Georgia. We have a huge race with Stacey Abrams and lots of other races around the state as well. But there's so many other states that this midterm is proving to be a fork in the road for our democracy and for many organizers on the ground. So can you talk a little bit about that part of it? Like what's at stake with this midterms, and why do we really need folks to turn out and show out this time?
I mean, there's so much. I mean, I am sure that this is not the first time that you've heard this is the most important election of our lives, right? And after a while, that gets old and tired. So I want to acknowledge that. And I will just say this: stakes is high. Stakes is high. And it's not all the good vibrations. And so when I think about, my first presidential election was the 2000 election. Right. And, right. Yeah.
Oh, well, you just sent me back a minute. Wait a minute.
Exactly.
Hold on to catch my breath. Ooh, that was okay. Okay, go ahead.
And when we think about Florida, right? We're talking pregnant nipples, hanging chads,
Hanging ads, Lord.
Catherine Harris, the Secretary of State, Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida, and the Supreme Court
And
stopped
SCOTUS.
Black
Yeah.
people's votes in Dade County, right, in South Florida. And we got the president that we got, and the 8 years of shenanigans that followed. And then you think about the 2024 presidential election, right? A couple of things. The Congress that we elect in 49 days, 48 days, are going to be the ones who are responsible for certifying the 2024 presidential election.
Wait, I'm gonna stop. Can you say that one more time? I just need everybody to actually honestly hear that point in particular.
Right. So the Congress that we elect in 48 days, this 22 midterms, are the folks who are going to be responsible for certifying the 2024 presidential election. Right? So that's point one. Point number two is that even if it goes, so there are almost 200 election deniers running for Congress and running for executive office in states across the country. Folks running for governor who don't believe that the 2020 election results are legitimate. And then you add this rogue Supreme Court that is ignoring decades of precedent, a legal precedent, and slashing and burning when it comes to the rights that Americans enjoy. And then you put a contested 2024 election in their hands and ask them to make a decision. And this is also, right, with a Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, who is married to a Jenny Thomas, who is a key figure in planning the sort of events around the insurrection and the insurrection itself. And you think we need to make sure that the folks that we're sending to Washington, D.C., and the folks that we're sending to our state capitals understand that the right to vote is sacrosanct, and that it is a free and fair election is necessary. It's worth defending. I mean, that is just in terms of the mechanics of elections and whether or not we will have a democracy that sort of functions going beyond the 22 midterms. And then you think about the number of issues that are on the ballot. I'll talk about my state, Georgia. Right. The minimum wage is $5.15 an hour. It's below the federal minimum wage of $7.25. And Americans haven't had a raise in 12 plus years. And it's been longer than that for Georgians, right? Georgians pay federal taxes. And some of those tax dollars are used to expand Medicaid in states all across the country. But because of Georgia Republicans and their refusal, or the fact they're holding on to their sort of anti-Obama sentiment and their hostility towards the Affordable Care Act, they refuse to accept the 90-10 match from the federal government. So what does that mean? That means that Georgians are paying federal taxes that go to pay for health care for folks in California, for folks in New York, for folks in North Carolina, and places where their leadership will not let them die. Like that's what we're talking about. That's what's at stake. Hospitals are closing all over the state of Georgia because they can't afford to continue to operate because they aren't being reimbursed for taking care of people and saving their lives. And nothing focuses the mind like the credible threat of death. And so we've lost 1 million neighbors throughout this pandemic. The long-term effects of COVID, plus people still having babies, people still fighting cancer, and hospitals are closing. There's one in Atlanta that's closing right before Thanksgiving.
I just saw that because I think that's going to put you down to just one, major ICU and major emergency room in the entire city of Atlanta, which is such a specific, to me, because we know what a Black city Atlanta is, right? So to me, that what that says is a lack of care, concern for Black people in Atlanta and in Georgia to have only one, top trauma center in a city like Atlanta it's unconscionable.
100%. I mean, we're talking about a city of 500,000 people, right? Like accidents, strokes, like school shootings, right? Like one level 1 trauma center in an entire city for 500,000. And that one is booked. There are beds there now. So the stakes are high. And we are having real talk and real conversations with Georgians on the doors, while also trying to make sure that they don't secretly purge tens of thousands of folks off the voter rolls, that polling locations are open, and that every vote is counted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I hope everyone was listening, taking notes. This is a very serious, and we say this all the time, every election is important, and it's true, but we really, this midterm, our democracy is on the ballot, one way or the other. And I think that point about these folks that we're sending to Washington in these midterms, these are the folks that we're going to be relying on to hold the line in the 2024 election and ensure that every vote counts and that the rightful person that was voted into office actually takes the White House in 2024, whoever that may be. All right, so you're super busy. We don't need to get into too much more, but I had one last question, because we always want people to know how best to support the amazing work you're doing. So what's needed on the ground in Georgia right now? How can everyone jump into action the way everybody did in January of 2020 for that Senate runoff? We want to see that same level of engagement, that same level of commitment, that same level of donations, y'all. Listen to me, okay? Yeah. So Nsé, I'll leave you the floor. Let everyone know. What do you need from us right now?
I'm telling you that we are mobilizing and we need your help. We have 18 offices across the state of Georgia that are staffed by incredible organizers, folks who come from the communities that we organize in, folks who know our communities and are accountable and committed. And we want to continue to have these high quality, face-to-face when possible conversations. And in order to do that, we need you to donate to New Georgia Project. newgeorgiaproject.org/donate is the link. We also would welcome election defenders, vote defenders. There are about 3,000 polling locations in Georgia, and we are going to have a presence on Election Day at about 950 of them, which is about 62% of our priority precincts, where we want to make sure that we are pushing as many people of color, young folks, to vote as possible. And so if you are a lawyer, if you are a law student, if you are a person of faith, a religious leader, if you got some free time and you care about democracy, we would love to plug you in. We've knocked on 1.3 million doors already this year, and are going to try to get to 2 million by Election Day. And so come turn up with us. And then also we're doing a lot of voter education. So check out our site, readyset.vote. Where we're ballot builders. There's word clouds, because people will tell you what they are running for and what they're about. And then we've analyzed their social media. And so, yes, they say many hands make the work light. And if you have a hand to spare, we could certainly use it in Georgia.
Awesome, Nsé. I'm so glad. Everyone, you can follow all those links you saw pop up on the bottom of the screen. And also, you'll be getting follow-up from us with all of these same links as well. Nsé, before you run off, I wanted to just ask you, I heard a rumor that New Georgia Project has a video game. Is it true?
It is true.
It is.
This is not a game. You can download it in the app stores. And yeah, man, we are trying to push, to do this, to really do this. We've, 50% of gamers are women and femmes. Nearly 80% of Black and brown men and boys identify themselves as gamers, playing a few hours a week. So why not make sure that everywhere our constituents are, everywhere our base is, that we're there as well. And so while you're mindlessly, when you're off camera on Zoom, playing your game, why not get a sort of election reminder? And so, yes, it's voter education, it's voting reminders, messages that come from our comms team that get pushed through the video game. And yeah, it's fun. Download the game.
Super cool.
This is not
Download it, y'all. This is not a game. Download it. Super fun. Make sure that we donate to New Georgia Project. Make sure that you turn up and show up for election defenders as we start to set up all our teams and make sure that we're protecting everyone from the vote. Nsé, thank you so much for joining us. Love you so much. Thank you for all of your hard, impressive, incredible work in Georgia and beyond. And we will talk to you very soon.
Take care.
All right, everyone, I'm going to turn it over back to our host.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you so much, Nsé, for all that you do. I am honored today to be joined by Art Reyes, the Executive Director of We the People in Michigan. Art, thank you so much for being here with us for our launch event today.
No, very, very excited to be here with you and with a bunch of folks that threw down big with us in 2020 here in Michigan.
Yeah, so let's start with 2020. We would love to hear about your experience. What was it like? How did folks in your community respond to these joyful volunteers in their election defender gold? What was it like?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. 2020 was very intense, but also really powerful here in Michigan. Just to back up for folks that I don't yet know, my name's Art Reyes. I use he and him, and I lead an organization called We the People Michigan. In 2020, after having a number of conversations with you, Angela, and really kind of getting some clarity around some of the things that we had already been hearing in Michigan around attempts that we were anticipating to subvert the election, we decided that we had to act. And so we worked with a number of other organizations and community leaders, built a massive infrastructure across the state that was disciplined. There were 18 action councils that were led by local leaders spread across the state that were taking action in coordination with one another. And one of the things that was really, really critical in all of that was that we were doing this for us. We weren't doing this for a politician. We weren't doing this for the politics. We were doing it because our communities had worked really, really hard, had showed up around COVID, had showed up in the streets to defend Black lives, had showed up to vote, and we weren't going to let anybody's voices be silenced. And so it was really important that we were clear that this was about us. This was about our communities. This was about us celebrating our communities, celebrating our power. And so this spirit of joyful celebrations, of actually bringing that mentality and that spirit to it was really, really critical, and us being able to act in concert together. And it was a really important symbol. I was just talking about this last week. It was a really important symbol to have all of us, rocking colors together, that there was kind of that everybody had these beautiful kind of revote, and also some of the sweatshirts that you're wearing right now, the election defender swag, a particularly beautiful one that you have on. That was really important to show that whether these were folks that were in a small town in the Upper Peninsula, like in the Keweenaw Peninsula or in Alger County, that they were standing shoulder to shoulder with Black and brown folks who in Detroit and in Benton Harbor and in Grand Rapids and Washtenaw County and Kalamazoo, all over the place, saying we're not going to let anybody's voices be silenced, not here, not in Michigan. And us actually having both the visual and the spirit that was joyful, that was about multiracial solidarity, was critical in our efforts to defend against the subversion of our election here in Michigan.
Thank you so much, Art. And I will say, as a born and raised Michigander, I was so proud to see all of the work that y'all are doing to hold it down, to make sure that no matter the efforts to try to thwart the election results, to keep Black and brown and poor folks from, casting their ballots, that y'all held it down and really were able to make sure that the democracy and the vote was upheld. I do have one more question for you, but before we get to that, I wanted to ask you if you could just do a brief physical description of yourself, or so that we can make sure this is accessible to as many folks as possible.
Of course, of course. I am sitting wearing a black shirt. I have a beard and black hair. I'm a Chicano male that's sitting in front of a lovely little wreath that my mother-in-law made us here in my home in Michigan.
Thanks for that, Art. If we could I know that we're in another election cycle, surprise, surprise. Can you just tell us what's at stake in Michigan and for all of us in these midterm elections?
Yeah, there's quite a lot at stake, and just to kind of zoom out a little bit, Michigan has been a place where there's been a number of attacks on democracy for a lot of years. It goes beyond the presidential election. I think I grew up in Flint. Flint's home for me, and the Flint water crisis was a result of anti-democratic laws passed in Michigan, the emergency management law that was stripping authority from locally elected officials, particularly in Black and brown cities in the state of Michigan. So we've seen what the attacks on democracy can mean. That the Flint water crisis was a direct result of that. And so our communities take it very seriously when there are threats on taking our voices away. And in 2020, we had a victory, a defensive victory, but we had a massive victory that was the result of work that happened by working class folks, everyday people, multiracial working class folks standing shoulder to shoulder and saying, like, we're not going to let anyone's voices be silenced, not here, not in Michigan. The right learned from some of the things that we were doing. They did not stop. And while for us at the time, it was getting through 2020, we quickly realized that this was some organizing infrastructure that we were going to need to continue building in perpetuity, at least in the medium term. And so we know that in 2022, there are many more threats that we're seeing, kind of escalated threats of political violence, but we're building safety plans with our folks. We're kind of that organizing infrastructure that we built in 2020 is healthy and is going to continue on and making sure that we're defending the democracy that we currently have while working to build the multiracial democracy that we actually deserve, that we've not yet seen in this country. But this is going to be a moment, right? It's going to be a test. It'll be a test about whether or not we actually can stand in solidarity with each other, make sure that everyone's votes are counted, that this happens, that there is a free and fair election. But it's also really important that we're not that we are ensuring that we're not letting folks who are currently running for office on the basis of denying the results of the election and working to limit our ability to vote, that they're not elected. So in Michigan, we have some of those folks at the top of the ticket that are election deniers, and it's really, really important that we are clear who's on the side of the people and who's not. Because there's a lot of folks that are coming for us, but we're gonna, we've continued to organize. We're gonna stay ready in 2022 because we know that it's going to be incredibly important across the country that grassroots leaders, that organizing organizations are ready for 2024 because this will be a big test.
Yes, thank you so much, Art. And you mentioned that we did have a victory in 2020. And I think it's so important to lift that up when we're, facing the kind of onslaught of attacks that we see every day. It can be hard to remember that we won and
Yes.
that these attacks are because we won and we are winning, and we will continue to win if and when we come together to get organized, to stay principled and rigorous in our work. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, and for everything that you're doing and building in Michigan, and really inspiring folks across the country. Thank you so much, Art.
No, yeah, really, really honored to be in the space with you and to be working shoulder to shoulder with you, Angela, and others, because we are in a very serious fight. But the point that you just lifted is really, really important for everybody that's on this call to be taking away. This is a reaction to our power.
That's right.
Multiracial working class folks are winning the day.
Yep.
We're taking the streets, we're winning elections, we're winning policies, we're fighting back, we're actually building in really, really important ways. And it's really important to contextualize that, like you said, like we're winning and we need to live into our power and continue building it, because that's the stuff that they can't take away from us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Art Reyes with We the People, Michigan. We are gonna transition now to take some questions from our audience. So I wanted to remind you all, as you're thinking of your questions, you can, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can put your questions in the comments. And if you're watching on Twitter, you can tweet your questions and someone will reply to those tweets. And we've been talking a lot about the Election Defender Program, about the success and the magic of 2020 and what's at stake here in 2022. And so as you all are thinking about and really resonating with the words of our speakers, I want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with us. So you can text Frontline to 30403. You can text Frontline to 30403. That is how you get in touch with us. And as we are gathering some of the questions from Facebook and YouTube, I want to invite my dear friend Tiffany Flowers back to the conversation to help me answer some of these questions. Hey, Tiff.
Hi, Ange.
So a couple of questions that I am seeing in the chat are, one, how do I sign up? So I think we just hit on that one. But I'll say it again because I don't mind saying it as many times as needed be, which is to text Frontline to 30403. And then there are also a question of how do I invite my friends to join? That is, I'm so grateful for that ask. That's exactly what we want you to do. And so the way to invite your friends to join is, one, to text Frontline to 30403. And then send that message to your friends. Say, hey, I am signing up to be an election defenders, and I want you to join me. I want you to come out and come to the polls with me, not just to vote, but to be a defender. And then to ask them to text Frontline to 30403. Another question we have, Tiff, is are you doing more webinars?
We absolutely are doing more webinars. We're going to stay together and as close as we did during the last election. That was, as Art says, we're winning, and we're winning because we're getting closer. We're building community. And so we've built a team. We brought back some of your favorite trainers. If you got trained up through us last time, you'll recognize, shout out to my teammate, LJ Amsterdam. You'll recognize Shauna. Again, the same people who've been walking with us all along are back. They're going to help us get ready for the election. And then we will also, I know, again, you guys turn to us for trusted information and helping to make sense of the moment. So while we're standing up the election defenders, you can also look out for a couple of calls from us as we build to the election. And again, trying to decipher misinformation and make sure we're all reading off the same sheet of music as we head to November 8th, 9th?
That's exactly right. Yep. Tattoo it on your brain, at least for the next, get a little temporary tattoo, November 8th. And, Tiffany, something that you said also brought up another question that I wanted to ask you, we can share with our audience. Movements and power and victories, electoral victories, policy victories, social victories, the type of work that it takes to transform our communities, it takes time. It doesn't just happen in one protest. It doesn't just happen in a 2-year or a 4-year election cycle. And so, the part of the work that we do is thinking about multiple ways to engage people, multiple opportunities to bring people in. And so one of the opportunities that you and I are also working on is a moment called Day Without Us, and it's coming up. Frontline is a partner of it. I wonder if you can just share with our audience a little bit about Day Without Us, please, Tiff.
Yeah, I think the way you characterized it is so great about how it doesn't take one day, Angela. And oftentimes people need lots of opportunities and invitations. And so the Day Without Us is actually a response to the reproductive justice crisis we're in right now. And the fact that many of you and many of the people that we know and love have been really, really saddened and disappointed by the Dobbs decision, and feeling like you didn't know exactly, again, where to go to get information, who to trust, and what orgs you could be in community with as you try to figure out how to join that fight as well. So next Friday, September 30th, 3 days before the court comes back into session, we are inviting you to join us online for a teach-in, to have some conversations with some of our favorite friends from across movements, from March for Our Lives to Black Voters Matter, to talk about how our work is all connected, how our communities are all connected, but most importantly, right, how our survival is all connected. That will be in the first part of the day. And then the second part of the day, there's going to be pop-ups all over America where you can actually take the same energy that you're sharing with us online and walk or get in your car or take the bus or ride a scooter to an actual physical pop-up where people not like me and Angela will be, but Angela and I will actually be in different locations. Meet us. And we'll be in those spaces sharing more information, helping folks make sense of the moment. But most importantly, and I'll stop, is that on Friday, September 30th, we are not going to work. We are going to remove ourselves from every from every system that we possibly can that works against us. So we're staying home. We're gonna join the teach-in. We're going to join the pop-ups, and we're going to take that time to spread information in our community about the fact that this fight for reproductive justice actually is not just about women and babies. It's about all of us. It's about our freedom. It's tied into our fight for the democracy. And we join you to come learn with us, we invite you rather to join us, come spend the day with us, come learn with us, and build more community. Let's get closer. We're close. Let's be closer.
Yes, absolutely. And again, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. These things don't change. They don't transform overnight. And the challenges that are facing us that are on the horizon, it's going to take us to go even deeper with each other. It's going to require us to be even more supportive, even more generous, even more vulnerable. And so the way that we do that, the way that we know how to do that is to be in community virtually as much as we need to and in person as much as we can. I see one more question that I want to take from our audience, which is, are we doing conflict resolution again? And the answer to that question is yes. There is a great deal of the training that we're doing that's going to, when we talk about de-escalation, which is a big part of what the Election Defenders Program does. We are most certainly going to talk about ways for folks to show up and to be supportive of voters that are at the polls. We know that the threats that are the plans that the opposition is making to show up at the polls, all of the things that Nsé talked about to make it more difficult, more confusing, more scary for people to show up and vote. we know that those things are on the horizon, but we also know that if we train each other, if we train ourselves to be prepared for those scenarios, not necessarily to be in a place preparing to fight or to be in combat mode, but to support each other, to support voters, to support our community members, to say, like I said, we got us. Right? We don't need to worry or really pay any mind to the folks that are trying to create a mess out of our democracy and trying to make it more difficult for people to vote, or they only want certain people to vote who would look a certain way or who have certain ideas that they agree with. We don't need to pay those folks no mind, because we have each other, we got each other's back, and we're going to teach you all as we do our trainings, as we have our mass calls, we're going to teach you all how to be show up for those voters and not necessarily having to be in any tension with those folks that are trying to create confusion or be in opposition, but to show up with and for the voters that we know are the folks that we love and that we care about, and we want to make sure that they have a chance to show up and exercise their right to vote. Tiffany, before I wrap us, did you want to add anything, any additional responses to any of the questions that came up, or any parting words before we say goodbye?
I just want to say the doors of the Frontline Election Defenders Joy to the Polls Church have opened officially.
Be a little organ music next time.
Literally, dum dum dum. The doors of this church have opened for the 2020 season. We've put a lot of energy and intention into preparing this program for you all and making sure people can join Election Defenders, get slotted into the work where you are, and be a part of this fight, because we know that you're as eager to jump in as we are to offer everything we have to you. I see the chat. Shout out to Muriel and James and Roger and Pamela and everybody who's so enthusiastic. You're thanking us, but we have to thank you, because we're just putting it together. But it's all of you that are going to go out and do the election defense work and make sure my mama, Angela's mom, and me, my husband, my nieces, nephews, and family can vote safely. So I thank you. I thank you very much. And I welcome you into this 2020 election season with us, and can't wait to get to work.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your leadership, for your vision, for being a sister and a friend. And again, as Tiffany said, thank you all for being ready to join us, for standing up and answering the call to be election defenders. There are lots of ways that we're going to share with you over the next 50 days on how to throw down and how to support the Election Defender program, but also to support people across across the country, in your state, in your community. I was really moved by what Nsé said about, the folks that we're voting for in November are the folks that are going to decide whether or not to certify the election results in 2024. And that's not to say that everything is about the elections, but every single election matters. Every single one matters. Every single voter matters. And that's why we're here, to support and make sure that those folks can get a chance to vote. I have a couple of asks for you before you leave. If you have not yet, please text Frontline to the number 30403. Text the word Frontline. It's one word, a compound word, which we are apparently learning in pre-K these days. And text the word Frontline to 30403 so that we can get in touch with you. We can share information about our upcoming mass calls, upcoming trainings. There will be lots of trainings over the next several weeks. I have another ask for you, which is to tell your friends about Election Defenders. This video will be available online on Facebook and on YouTube. Share that with your friends. Let them know about the great conversations that you saw today, and invite them to volunteer to be election defenders. It's really going to take all of us and then some to make sure that we can hold it down and let folks cast their votes on this election cycle. And then I will also ask for you to show up for the day without us. As Tiffany said, we're asking you, we're inviting you to join us as you can go to daywithoutus.com and register to take the day away on September 30th, to step back from business as usual and to step into your community. So we ask that you join us for daywithoutus.com. And again, I'll just say my unending gratitude to Tiffany, to the Frontline team, and to all of you for being ready to jump back into this Election Defenders program with us. We out here, y'all. So let's go. Let's do this. And I'll see you in the streets.
Thanks, y'all. Peace.
Thank you. Bye.
My name is Maurice Mitchell, and I'm the National Director of the Working Families Party. We deserve a country and a government that cares for us the way that we have cared for one another at a time of intense crisis, when so many of our loved ones are facing eviction and hunger and joblessness and illness and death. We deserve a world where we don't simply survive, but we thrive, where it doesn't matter what race you are, your gender, the region you might live in, the zip code you might have been raised in, how much money you have in your pocket, that you could live in dignity, that you could experience a world where you have the ability to achieve your greatest human potential, and you know that your basic needs will be met. It's that simple. A world, an economy, a government, a country based on care. Not the accumulation of wealth, not fear and division, but care and solidarity. And that world can happen now. It's up to us. Our elected officials, many of the leaders in corporate America have failed us. They brought us here. No one's going to save us but us. It's our time. And we have the genius, the compassion, the heart, the strength to lead in an uncommon time, in an uncommon way, when our people need us to. Because we, in this moment, can create the world that we know that we deserve. That's the world that I'm willing to organize and vote and protest and strike and vote and protest some more for. Will you join me?